Welcome back to TV Houston's Diversity Talk. ¿Cómo estás? Of course, when I say ¿Cómo estás?, we know what we are talking about today. We are talking about the Texas. More than 200 years or so, this Texas state was part of Mexico. And for 100 years or so, it was given that we will give back to you and we will return back to you, but guess what? It hasn't been back. So we're still struggling with that, but amazingly, 40% of our percentage of the population in Texas still makes up a Hispanic community. So knowing that, we have invited some guests from the Hispanic community, the Latino community, and we would like to introduce you to them. On my left-hand side, I have Mr. Victor Escalante, and he is the Communication Director of Hispanic Citizen in Action. And on my right-hand side, of course, you've returning guest, Mr. Len Swanson. He is the CEO of Getty Group. And on my very far right, I have Mr. Baldo Garza, and he's the advisor on Hispanic Citizen in Action, which is part of Republican Citizen in Action. Welcome to all of you, gentlemen, and welcome back to you as well.
Wonderful. And we need to mention that we have launched Houston GOP Diversity.org, diversityoutreach.org, which is on the screen there. You can see this broadcast live. Go to the media section every Friday night, and you will see this show.
Okay, so let's get it started. I have a question for Mr. Victor, first of all. Since you're the Communication Director of Hispanic Citizens in Action, so what are the main actions that your committee is taking to engaging the citizen to the government?
What we have done is we have launched a public forum to invite policymakers, and we create a bridge for Hispanics, both in our membership as well as open to the public, so that people can meet directly the policymakers. They can ask their questions, they can get educated on the pressing issues that are important to Hispanics.
Okay, thank you so much. And Mr. Baldo, there was a question that I had in my mind. Now these days specifically, there's this subject that is in everybody's mind about when Mr. Donald Trump says, I am going to deport all the illegal or Mexicans or illegal aliens out of the border. And since you're too attached to you belong to Hispanic community and you are chosen to be the advisor on the board, what kind of advice do you give to when general public comes to you and they're fearful and they're like, okay, are we really going to get deported? So how do you handle that?
Well, one of the things that, because I am also an immigration attorney.
Yes, and that's why I asked you this question.
I have clients that come see me every day, and there is discussion about, what's going to happen with this deportation. And one of the things that's very interesting that is not being communicated is that, the due process that you have to go through. So if right now we're 350,000 cases behind in the Harris County, in the Houston Immigration Court, now add another, let's say, just say 5 million people.
Oh, wow.
So what you're going to do is you're going to give them a notice to appear, which basically means show up to court, number one. Number two, they show up to court with their lawyer. They're going to say, okay, well, because I've been here for 10 years, I have American citizen children or grandchildren. I've stayed out of trouble, And basically, we're going to file a 42B, which is cancellation of removal.
Does it matter if they have paid taxes or not paid taxes? Because I know there's something that they can file, T1 or something, and they get
a TIN number.
TIN number,
a TIN number. Yeah. The Treasury Department doesn't care whether you're documented, undocumented. As long as you pay your share, they're happy.
Yes.
So, but one of the things about it is, as we continue the process in immigration court, the judge is going to weigh all of these things. And that's why it's so important to say, I'm a family person, I have a family, I have property, I pay taxes, I've stayed out of trouble all these years. And the judge is going to weigh those things, and he's going to say, you know what, I'm going to cancel your removal, okay? And I'm actually going to help you become a legal permanent resident.
I see. So what is going to happen to the presidential executive order? Did that ever took place, or is ever going to take place?
Well, what we had was the Supreme Court just recently came back and said extended DACA and DAPA, the president doesn't have the authority to that under executive action. It has to go to Congress. Okay. So now it's going back to the lower courts. What's going to happen with that is because in our experience, the majority of young people that are getting the deferred action for childhood arrivals, are high school kids, college kids, and you have to understand it. You have given these young people wings and the ability to dream. Because before, even I knew college students that were going to graduate, but they would never be able to work for anybody. And as soon as the deferred action came on, they were able to get a work permit and get their Social Security, and all of a sudden they become more productive within American society. And that's something that we kind of have to look at with a different lens and say, you were brought over as a child, you really had no control over that.
Exactly.
So now, and you're making something, and you're chasing that American dream, we can't get rid of those kids. Okay. Now, the bad people, yeah, we're going to deport because they're just bad.
Okay, thank you.
And that is the significant point that we need to point out, is that the rhetoric that you hear from the Democrats chastising Trump in his statements are not understanding as we in the trenches are understanding, and just as my good friend Baldo has talked about, we're not going to be deporting no 11 million or whatever number of people. The criminals, yes, but there is a process. And that's the point that, especially in the local level, with what we're doing collectively together as a diversity outreach, we have opportunities of citizenship, and that is what's going to be discussed. That is what we're going to be addressing, and more importantly, guiding those that want to see what we call the light in the way. You're not going to be deported at the end of the day.
Okay.
Victor.
So, Mr. Victor, the question that I was just asking Mr. Baldo, the second half of that question is, how are we going to find those illegal aliens? What is the process that maybe a GOP or through the Democratic Party, or are you being a police to getting to those people who are illegal? Because obviously if someone is not legal and they're living at one of these neighborhoods, no one's going to report it because no one's going to know who's legal and who's illegal. What is the process of finding those people, and what is the process that you think is going to help to find a solution to this? Because of course, obviously, we can't put a border because there are lot of rivers and mountains and farms and a lot of stuff is there. Putting a wall is not practical, but there's got to be a solution. So as in being in the media for 20 years, that I know you have an experience with,
yes.
And as well as, so what do you think is being an action committee, what can be done?
Well, one of the things that other communities have attempted to do is to create a local government-issued ID. You're asking, how do we find these people?
Yes.
It's very important to know who is in the country, who is in our community. And many of these people would be willing to come out of the shadows if they could get a government-issued ID so that they could move within the community having this government-issued ID. An example that just happened here in Texas. There was a policy that was made that parents who did not have an American government-issued ID could not register their children. And so that created a massive chaos. And it had to be challenged in the courts so that parents could issue some kind of government ID, even if they're undocumented in the country and it was an ID from their country. Just as an example of why certain policies are very critical to undocumented immigrants and to the Hispanic community, because a lot of us have come from Latin America and we have family members that are in the process of becoming legal. And so to answer your question is, what we have done in the past to disseminate information that is critical, not only for Hispanics without documents, but anybody, is we have developed a coalition within churches that a lot of these people are now members of, where we go out and we disseminate this information by means of lectures and workshops and seminars on getting educated on important things that are important to families.
Okay, very good. So, as an immigration attorney, what are the main challenges that people bring into you, especially from the Latin community? Apart from the immigration, what are the other issues that they're having?
I think, and I want to go back real quick and stuff and just clarify that I guess the code, the law itself, yes, does say illegal alien, but the preferred word is undocumented. You know, because illegal alien has been used as a hurt.
Yes.
You know, when you cast it, it hurts. And so, you know, now a lot of people say, well, that's what it is. We agree. That's what the code is. But in reference to people, you know, I always tell people,
Undocumented.
you know, God doesn't make illegal.
Correct.
So we can't be illegal. You know, we may be undocumented in a country that perhaps we should have not come into, but that's just the way it is. But nevertheless, I think what is happening is, what I see the most, and I think one point with Victor was that the government already knows where people are. Okay?
People,
Yes,
government already.
they do. If the, you know, except the Treasury doesn't talk to ICE because they just don't talk. But now, if you really want to find people,
hold on. If
well,
the
they get PIN
government
numbers.
already know,
Sure.
that's probably where the 11 million number comes from.
Probably, you know,
Correct?
it's a ballpark.
So if they already know it, why it's this? They have to create a big issue and say that, okay, we have to deport them and do this, and we're going to talk more about it once we come back from our break.
Wonderful.
Welcome back to TV Houston's Diversity Talk. I'm your host, Sangeeta Dua. And on my right-hand side, we have another guest here today. So I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Whaley. Mr. Whaley is the chairman of Diversity Political Coalition, and he's also a co-founder with me. So he's here, and since he's here today, we're going to have some questions that we're going to ask and have you answer those questions for us. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sageena.
Yes. My question is that the idea behind the Diversity Political Coalition, we all know that is your brainchild. And where does it come from, and where are you taking us with this coalition?
Yes, my newspaper, I've been in publishing business for the last 37 years. You know, I also get involved in a lot of community events. I also chair the International Management District. In last so many years, I think all our community, including diversity, community, we need to work together. As an international management district, we have all kind of race come over, especially new immigrants come to the city. So we like to build the platform. So for all of us, I think this is a great country for all of us as a new immigrant. So I think we really appreciate what this great land gives us opportunity. That's the reason we want to have this coalition, see what politically what we can do together.
What we can do together, yes. As you always say that, and I always repeat your words with that is, yes, we do donate some money to our candidates, and we want to support all our representatives, and we always want to support and help the candidates to go further and to do the things that they want to do. But collectively, we can do much more. Collectively, let's say the Hispanic community and the Chinese community, the Asian community, the Indian community, African community, all together as a collective, we can do much more. And that is the agenda behind the Diversity Coalition that we have. So what are the this coming few months or so until the elections, what are the programs that you have in mind, and what are we doing with this?
Of course, Sageena, first thing is that we open this TV talk show on every Friday night. This is a very important forum for all of us express our opinion.
Yes.
Second thing is that we try to create some rally, festival in front of this building. So we like to
In front of the ITC building, which is the International Trade Center.
That's right.
On Bel Air and Wilcrest.
That's right.
Yes.
So probably we talk about 5,000 to 10,000 people. So we like to use this rally to express our political opinion. Also, we try to collect 200,000 emails from all the organizations See, we have a 7 chamber of commerce.
Yes.
All of us going to work together. See, we can get all these 200,000 email to get direct contact with our voter. So lastly,
So the voter registration is another thing. Yes.
definitely. Lastly, we're going to get all the candidates coming to our studio, screen them. We need to talk to them face to face.
Sure.
See what their opinion on immigration issue, economic issue, a lot of issues. That's our responsibility as a news media.
As a media,
yes.
yes. Okay, thank you. Mr. Baldo, let me go back to the question that I had asked and you were answering, but because of the commercial, it got cut out.
Sure.
So continue there.
I think one of the things that I see with a lot of my clients is just the majority of them are already paying taxes. You know, the GAO is actually already taken into the account of the money that they actually pay in taxes. So it's something that a lot of people don't know, and people want to pay their fair share. And a lot of times the people that do come and say, no, I don't pay taxes, my question is, why not? And the thing that I find out is that they just don't know that they're supposed to, because from there we have policemen, we have firemen, we have streets and city services and all that, meaning everybody's got to pitch in order to have what we have in this country.
Do you know what the percentage of Hispanic community is on unemployment?
Ours is probably somewhere, maybe 10%. You know, I mean, it's a much higher number just simply because, we have not completely gotten with the program on education. We're still dropping out of high school. We're still having children when we're very young. And again, typically you don't have the connections to find the jobs. And I'll say this really quick. I was at a hospital one time with a relative of ours, and a gentleman steps onto the elevator. The next floor, another gentleman steps on, and they shake hands. It's good to see you. How's the wife and everything? How's your son? I heard he's graduating from law school. Yeah, he is. Well, call so-and-so. He's looking for new lawyers and stuff. And that network that exists with other groups, we're still lacking. Now, when it comes to maybe perhaps my son or somebody else that says, my son's going to graduate, well, hey, call so-and-so. He's looking for lawyers. And that's where sometimes there's a support system that we're still missing, but we're working on that.
Sure. Let me go back to Mr. Victor, asking you about question about the education that Mr. Baldo had just brought up. For the education, your action committee is very active to educate people, to educate your community, your own community, and getting them involved with the government and policymakers, and bringing the representatives, bringing the people from the governor's office, or and so in that kind of nature, to get involved with the Hispanic community and giving them the lectures and educating them. Now, still, what is the reason? And that really bothers me. And that is personally I wanted to ask that more than 200 years it's been like that since we have been here in Texas. But still, the education-wise, the Latin community is far behind in a percentage where it's supposed to be. What is the reason? Is it a culture?
That is true. This has been a topic that we've discussed among ourselves. In my personal opinion, I think it has to do largely with culture. The majority of Hispanics that come from Mexico do not come from an educated background compared to other demographics. For example, Cubans. Cubans are a lot more progressive education-wise, whereas a lot of the people that are coming from Mexico are working class people.
My question was, Mexicans or Latinos make 40% of the demographic here in Texas, here in Houston. And since you are from the Asian community, Asian community makes only maybe 2%, 3% the most.
You're talking about Democrat?
No, I'm talking about not Democrat or Republican. I'm talking about the Asian community as a whole. So having such a low percentage in the Asian community and having a very, very high percentage in the Latin community, but if you look at, where wealth-wise or education-wise, the Asian community is very wealthy and very well off and very well educated and very well to do.
That's correct.
Versus the Latin community is still doing the low-paying jobs
Still struggling.
and still struggling after so many years. more than 240 some years, I believe. I don't have the exact year, but it's still struggling, still paying low-paying jobs, and still paying a handyman and cleaning lady.
Well,
But let me give you a poster child.
Yes.
Let me give you a poster child of Hispanics. So you've got a family that comes from Mexico. This is a family that the father was a campesino. He was a farm worker. So he comes over here, uneducated, doesn't know the educational system. When his children, it's time to make a decision, what do they do after they graduate out of high school? There is family pressure that they go to work to help support the family. That is very typical, as opposed to putting them on a track that you are going to college because we made great sacrifice to come here. You are now the recipient of opportunities that we didn't have. Instead of having that culture, that mindset, Hispanics is you're going to go to work to help support the family.
Okay.
And that's their
what is the
insurance.
reason
Let
that
me
the
add
Asian
on.
community is doing so
Exactly.
well?
Let me add on something. I think Asian population probably have 5 or 6%, not 2%. I think in this in the city at least. I think get back to 40 some years ago when they come to this country. That's the only two ways you can come to this country. Number one is you go to school. Number two is that you jump on the ship. You know, you're a shipman. So it's so far away. You cannot come to this country unless you have some reason.
Yes.
So most of us come to this country, we already have a college degree. So that's the reason, basically, you know, like India, Pakistan. So mostly from educated family. So when you have from educated family, of course, next generation, naturally they're going to go to college. I think that's a fundamental issue. So for Hispanics, it's a little bit different, you know. So portion-wise, so Asians should be high percentage in the high
Exactly
school.
my
Yes.
point. My point is, if we put a stop to the immigration for a little bit and let them come through the higher standard that we have come from, like through the education, not just crossing the border, simply, and come through the education, I think the Latin community will have higher. Do you agree?
No.
No?
No. The you know, what's happening in Central America is a disaster. And people are running, and they're running here. And that's because their lives are at risk.
Because political reasons.
You don't have as much Mexicans per se coming over as much as you used to. You have to look at the complicated history of Texas. At 1836, at the Battle of San Jacinto,
Yes.
you know, when that was over,
Yes.
okay, there was a war against anything that was brown or Mexican. It was going to be eradicated. Then you look at history, and you look at the history of the Mexican schools,
Yes.
where we were segregated, and so you go here, you can't come over with us. And then you were specifically told you don't need no more than 6th grade to go pick cotton or go pick up onions or anything else. If I give you more education, you're going to want to work in the office with me. We're not going to allow that. So what has happened is there's been a systematic, you know, oppression of the individuals here, you know, and then because of the border that we have, I've always considered it in flux, meaning people go back, they send their children during the summer, people come over, so it's kind of back and forth, it's almost like a wave. And what happens is, when you look at Italians, when you look at Germans, what happened was they ramped up in the number of immigrants that came, and then it stopped. And those people started to assimilate and acculturate into the U.S. They're no longer Italian Americans or
right.
Germans. They're just Americans. And
So
what
my-
was happened with us is we have not gotten there yet.
Okay. To my understanding, it was maybe what you're saying is correct, but also because of the fact that the community, the Latin community who have moved here or lived here or became a citizen here or become a part of the system here, they constantly have to send the money back to support the rest of the family still.
Yes.
And so little bit of money that they make, pretty much there's a percentage of that goes back to the country,
The parents.
to the parents, to the grandparents, to the relatives, because they need.
Sure.
So that is one of the reason could be
That would be one of the
why it's
factors.
not progressing.
Sure. That is one of the factors for sure.
So elaborate that on that. How can we stop that? I mean, if so much of the money that's being earned here is going back to and obviously they're not paying tax on it because they're sending it back. Okay, so that money is going back to the Mexico.
or Latin America.
or
Anywhere
Latin
in
America,
Latin
or anywhere in
Yeah.
Central America. So how is that justified, and how are they going to progress here if they're not even utilizing the money that they even earn?
It takes a change in mindset, and you got to start somewhere. That's one of the objectives that we have launched, is to educate the new progressive millennials that is the future of Hispanic engagement in politics, in business, and in every segment of society, because they are already having an impact and they will change the country.
Wow, that's great. So something needs to be definitely done. So, and
Look,
we were just...
and I guess one last point is just, based on, if you do not have parents that have enjoyed the sweetness of an education, where they're progressed, they were
Yes.
able to move to a better neighborhood, to better schools, and you're still struggling, and I hate to say you're still in the barrio,
Yeah.
you can never advance. You have to get out of that to be able to see
Sure.
the opportunities that are, and then prepare for them,
Prepare for them.
and then it's like, oh, you're so lucky.
Correct.
I'm just preparing for the opportunity.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for
Otherwise-
your comment. Well, we have
otherwise-
to take a little break at this point, and we'll come back after the short break. Welcome back to TV Houston's Diversity Talk. I'm your host, Sangeeta Dua. Well, we were talking about some issues, and Mr. Baldo, you were saying something, and we had to take a break. So go ahead.
Well, again, we go back to the issue of until you're actually benefiting from having an education
Yes.
where you can actually teach that to your children. And one of the things that I stress to any of my clients that come in that have little children, and I tell them your job is now. Because if that child gets out of third grade and doesn't read, write, and understand English, it's going to be mighty hard. It only gets difficult after that.
Yes.
And the problem is, a lot of times people come from different educational systems in different countries, and they have absolutely no clue of what's happening here. And if you don't go into the school system where your teacher knows you, knows your child, you work with your child, your child will fall through the cracks, and it's just another statistics.
Another drop-off.
Yes.
Right.
And that's why, our Houston GOP Diversity Outreach Group, which brought in the Latino Action group tonight, we're addressing that issue. We're reaching out. We're showing that we are going to, unlike in previous times, as a local entity, we will address the education. We'll address the jobs issues. And of course, that's why we also, as one of the key local politicians that we are endorsing, State Representative Gilbert Pena from,
House District 144.
144. He's an example of the Latino
GOP presence.
Well, yeah. The essence of what we want to bring at the end of the day. Because if we don't bring qualified candidates that represents that community, becomes a symbol for progression and growth. Because if the Latinos are going to become a key important members of not just our community, but from a standpoint of showing that there is a successful pathway, we've got to bring qualified examples of who to emulate. And I'll turn it over to Representative Gilbert to answer that as to why he stands.
Let me simplify for you guys that we're trying to make a connection between the government, the positions, state representatives, and all of you, the viewers. We're coming to the grassroots level, to the lower level, to talk to you, to have you connect with us. The only way you're going to connect with us if you bring the representative to you and you can hear them straight up, and then you can connect with them later on, and we'll give you the information. And our group is our TV program is doing that. So Mr. Pune, how are you?
I'm fine.
Welcome
Thank
to
you
the
for
show,
having
sir.
me.
So, Mr. Gilbert, tell me about your journey.
Oh,
Being a Hispanic, right? You've been here for decades of.
I was born here.
You were born
in
here.
Yes.
So tell us your journey, how you got here, and what you recommend, what you suggest to the other citizen from the Latin community how to take that path?
Well, my path started back quite, it's been a long path.
Yes.
I mean, I am up in age, but
But you're still young, man.
I started school when I was 10 years old. I had to sit in the back of the room. I spoke only Spanish. So, you know, the teachers didn't bother to try to teach me anything. I had to learn to read and write, well, mostly read on my own. Even today, my spelling is horrible, and my sentence structure is not that good. But I struggled to make it through. I did make it to 7th grade. Miss Walker's a great teacher. Took me under her wing, made sure that I could read. And so that when I attended college, which she thought I would never get to attend, I had my reading skill was a 287 out of 300. So it was
But
great.
you're a state representative from
Yes.
the District 144.
Yes.
Tell us the journey to how you became the state representative.
Well, when I decided to run for state office, my concern was the number one, we were being represented by the Democrats who continue to falsify what they would do for us. And the only way that I found that out was that I sat down and read both platforms. I read the Republican
So
platform.
why did you become the
Democrat
Republican
platform.
or pick the
Well,
Republican or to be a Democrat?
Well, the Republican platform represented more of what I believed in, and I was Christian. The Democrats believe in evolution. I do not believe in abortions. Democrats believe in abortions. I do not
So
believe
the
in same-sex
issues
marriage. They believe in same-sex marriage. And those are the things that I myself would never. I tell everyone I
Because
would not
most of the
compromise
Hispanics
on that.
are Democrat.
Right, they vote Democrat, and the problem with the voting Democrat is that they do not understand the differences in the two parties, and the propaganda, the false propaganda that the Democrats have instilled into the Hispanic community is that we are the party of the poor and you are poor. Well, the question that I came to was,
So you
Who
think
is
they were
poor?
able to connect with them?
yes, I was able to connect with them on a one-on-one because I was poor, and I kept telling them, you know, when I was fortunate enough to work 3 jobs and bought my house out in Jersey Village, a brick home, 4-bedroom, the Democrats passed the Robin Hood deal, which had to do take money from the rich and give to the poor.
Okay.
Well, because I lived in Jersey Village, I was designated as being rich. And so I had to pay, you know, my school taxes went up, and I had to pay to the poor school district.
Okay, Mr. Gilbert, if I give you a 1 minute to connect with your community right now in Hispanic, in your own language, in Spanish language, how would you say to your
What would I say to
Yes.
my voters out there?
yeah,
Well,
you
what I
can
would
speak
say to them-
Spanish. Yes.
Bueno, lo que le diría yo a la gente hispana que está en mi distrito, y no tan solo en mi distrito, pero en todo Houston, es que primeramente yo soy republicano, porque los demócratas por quien yo antes votaba por, ya no representan los valores cristianos ni los valores morales de la gente hispana o la gente en general. También diría que los demócratas que antes querían que todos nosotros votáramos con pasar la ley de los derechos de votar de 1965, ahora ya no quieren que nadie vote. Por eso han pasado leyes sin permitir que la gente vote contra estos temas. Por ejemplo, aquí en Houston pasó lo que pasó con el acto que pasó la mayor Anise Parker de Hero. No quería permitir a nadie que hablara contra esa proposición y no permitió que nadie que votara. Lo tuvimos que llevar a la Corte Suprema de Texas para poner ese tema en el ballot. Y cuando votamos, perdió 61-39.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Well,
diversity right
that
there.
as a chairman of Houston GOP Diversity Outreach, sir, what steps are we taking to connect with the Latino community?
Well, this is an example of how we're going to connect. We bring them to be part of this platform so that the rest of Houston can see that we're doing it. But we're also engaging them with other grassroots endeavors, of course, funding to support their candidates and to raise awareness. Because at the end of the day, as my good friend Baldo and Victor previously were talking about, it is a journey of education and a reaffirmation that there is another pathway other than what the Democrats teach, which is it's okay to be part of the handouts and the solutions versus hand up and prosperity, which we teach. And that is why the workforce programs that we'll be helping to bring as a Houston solution at the end of the day is the key elements that then the Hispanic Citizens in Action and good speakers like Beldo and Victor and State Representative Gilbert here, Pena, can take and transmit and say, see, the GOP is not the boogeyman. The GOP is not that devil, that evil creature that is going to put you down. No, on the other hand, we are the party of the hand up.
Okay.
So you're right.
Yes, at the same time, I would definitely like to say that the diversity talk is a nonpartisan. We are not on the Democratic side or the Republican side. I am sitting here, but the questions that I bring in and the subjects that I bring in, the issues that I bring in, something that matters to you. What matters to you is what you're communicating to me through the emails, through the phone calls, and through the Facebook page that we have. So please continue doing that, and because your feedback is what drives me, and your feedback is what pushing this program forward and in the directions that you want this program to go to. Having said that, Mr. Baldo, since we're talking about engaging with the people, engaging with the communities, and making connections, okay? So the question is, let's say if somebody's sitting at home watching our show, how can they become a state representative one day?
Well, I think the place that we have to begin is we have to educate people in telling them that it is okay for you to dream greater than whatever someone has told you or labeled you as. And that's one of the things that we have to see, and I'm very happy that our representative is here because he's the shining star. He's the point of the spear where he's saying it can be done, especially in his district.
Correct.
Because it's not GOP area. And the thing is, he is successful. We have to back him up. We have to make sure that it remains there. And then we have to say, let's come talk to our representative so he can connect. And one of the things that we have to see now is we have to conserve what we have. But at the same time, we have to start being inclusive into this younger population because we want them to understand, to be able to see the things that we see and then pick up the baton and go with it.
Yes.
Because, the Hispanic population in this country is tomorrow. Yes. We are primarily young.
Correct.
So we must get an education.
Yes.
We must get prepared because we are the bulk. We are the numbers.
Yes.
But the
Majority
thing is,
now.
but the thing is that if you don't educate them and you continue to give them Section 8 housing and food stamps, so you basically keep them on their knees.
Yes.
How can you ever truly move the country forward? It's a drag on the country, actually.
Correct.
So we want people to come out and stuff.
That, and you're not going to like it, but I still have to take a break. And it always happens when you're
That's
talking.
Okay. No problem.
I apologize for that. We'll take a little short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to TV Houston's Diversity Talk. We were talking about some questions before. Again, I had to cut
That's
you
okay.
off. You are the Republic Citizen in Action. You belong to that. That is your committee, right?
The Hispanic Citizens in Action.
Yes, but
I'm
also
an advisor.
the Hispanic
Yes, I do.
Republican Citizen
Yes.
in Action. So why did you pick to be on the Republican side since most of the Hispanics are on the Democratic side?
I think one of the things that, and I tell people, because a lot of people make fun of me because they say that I came out of the closet. I actually came out of the cold, and I decided to go to the GOP, again, because of a lot of the things in the platform. And a lot of people don't, let me
What
just...
are the main things in the platform that attracted you to join that trend?
Of what I've accomplished in my life, where I came from a small border town all the way to where I'm at. And this country gave me the opportunity, okay? And there were so many people that helped me along the way.
No, I'm asking about why did you become a Republican?
Because if you work and you prepare, the opportunity will come. I don't need the government to give me a handout or give me shelter because I'm going to work for it. That's the way that I was raised, and that's what America is all about. If you work, you can come here with nothing and be a millionaire if that's what you do and if you put your nose to the grindstone. And I think that's really, when you look at the platform on the other side, it's basically the government is going to take care of everything. It's going to be in all of your business, and I don't want that. You know, I want the government, the federal government to stay the federal government. I want the state government, which is more of us. I want my community to decide the issues in my community and find solutions locally. I don't need somebody from above to come down and push an idea or a theory that somebody sold them that's the solution in my community when we, in common sense, already know the solution because we live there.
So you are part of the solution.
We are the solution just simply because if you allow us, you know, to really get into the organization and put us in positions where we actually, you know, can show ourselves to everybody else, you'll be surprised at the people that are going to gravitate just simply because, well, if he can do it and he can do it, well, why can't I do it?
Yes.
You know, and all of a sudden you create momentum. The biggest issue with that is just simply you have to go beyond the programming that the Republican Party, you know, the people there have horns. They don't.
So they have to change their mindset not to be on the receiving end. They want to be on the giving end.
To go get it.
To go getting
Yeah.
end.
And if you
it's
earn
possible.
it, it's yours.
And
You
that-
earned it.
And that is exactly the picture that we're trying to paint with our GOP diversity outreach, is that by showing shining examples of what Beldo represents, not just because he's a spokesperson for that program, but what he personally accomplished, just as he so eloquently drew the picture of. Representative Pena is another shining example. We got to show their community and the young aspiring Hispanics, Latinos, that there is a pathway forward, and that's not through handouts. That's the key messaging that we're doing here today and throughout our whole mission as we go forth, is to show the shining examples that there is a pathway forward if you just work for it, but with assistance. And that is what we're doing, is doing assistance.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The same question goes to you. Why did you pick to be on the Republican side and not the Democratic side?
Well,
What
once again,
drove you there?
like I stated, I mean, I was working 3 jobs, buying me a brick home, and the Democrats decide I'm rich because I'm working hard to accomplish the American dream. I did not think that was fair, that they come in and raise my taxes because they want to give it to the poor schools. Now, time has shown that their idea that they passed back in '93, the Robin Hood deal,
Didn't work.
doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
I mean, HISD is indebted to what, $168 million that they're going to have to pay now to the Robin Hood deal, and they're crying they don't have any money. Well, I tell them I don't want to hear no excuses. When I told you I was working hard for my money, you took it anyway. So now it's time to pay it back. It's time to give it back to those people that you took it from. And so when I read the Republican platform and it's saying, you know, if you work hard for it and you earned it, then you deserve to keep it and you deserve to you know, enjoy the fruit of your labor. And so that was, I said, well, I've always worked hard and everybody's always taken it. So that was
Who's the
one of
other
other
candidate
reasons.
that's running in your district?
The other candidate that's running against me is Democrat Marianne Perez. And she was the incumbent last time. She was also the person that I defeated. She did have $200,000. She wasn't incumbent. I only had less than $13,000.
And only that's only you and her?
Yes, we're the only two on
So
the
what
on the
makes you
ballot
the
this
better
time around.
candidate?
What makes me a better candidate is that I tell everyone there's 2 things you can do when you go to Austin. Number 1, you can go out there and party, or you can go out there and work. And I went out there and I worked hard for the people.
What are the policies that you helped to make a difference in your district
Well,
that you had worked on?
that I worked on, one of the policies that I
Or
tried
bills
to,
that you had
well, one of
helped
the
to pass?
bills that I tried to pass was the work visa that would allow the immigrants from Mexico or wherever they were coming from to give them the opportunity to have a work visa, to work here in the country, and maybe a pathway towards citizenship if possible.
And that was
But it a
initiated by
study.
you or
Yes,
a group
that
of
was,
people?
that was initiated by me.
And was it passed?
No, it was not. It was, of course,
Is there any
shut
bill
down.
that got passed?
Yes,
was initiated by you?
There was
Or it's in
a-
process, or it's in the pipeline?
Well, I have several bills on the pipeline now, But there was a bill that I passed that had to do with the fines that are, or the criminalization of our youth that was passed back in '93, and it needed to be updated. I mean, it was an old law. It was over 20 some odd years old. And so it needed to be updated, and I was able to pass that law, increasing the amount of penalty that could be fined on a young adult.
And what's in the pipeline?
Right now in the pipeline, I have several bills. One of them that has to do with the bathroom bill, which is tried to pass last session, and it was shot down by everyone. But now there's going to be a big issue because President Obama has passed this executive order that transgenders should be allowed to use whatever facilities they're comfortable with. And I feel that that's taking away the rights from our children and from the parents. I mean, we the parents and our children have no rights all of a sudden under this executive order.
I see.
And so that is a concern to me and to a lot of people in my community.
If you win the election and become the state representative from the District 144,
yes.
What are your plans?
What are my plans? To go back to Austin and hopefully pass some more of these bills. I do have the bill, the equal parenting bill, which is also a very important bill to the non-custodial parents that do not get to pick up their children whenever they want to pick them up from the custodial mother. That's one of those important bills that I'm working on.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Going back to Mr. Baldmero. I finally got to pronounce your whole name.
That's it.
Baldmero Garza,
Yes.
by the end of the show, right? So, well, first of all, wanted to say gracias to all of you for being here. And gracias. Thank you very much, sir, for being here and for your time, for your effort that you made to make a connection with the community. And that's not going to go effortless. That is going to make a difference. If your intentions are correct and you really want to make a difference, then things will do happen. And again, the way you said that, the why you picked to be on a Republican side, and so you shared your views with the audience, with the viewers. So I'm sure people on the other side, they will probably be able to connect with you, and as well as they'll be jumping on your boat as well with the GOP outreach and diversity outreach as well. And good luck to you, sir, for the election coming up. And once again, thank you so much, gentlemen, and thank you again for watching us as well.
And we are the light and the way.
We come around every Friday now from 7:30 to 8:30, and that's just so you know, this show is always live, and we are nonpartisan, and it's sponsored by Diversity Political Coalition.